Hello and welcome to the Transform Your Relationship show. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hello, amazing Laura Rubinstein. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, our topic today is all about what's going on with me, and that's what warmed this one up. So I think we can talk about that, even though I just made a lot of noise there. I'm sorry.
No problem. So, what's going on is about when things happen in our life that are shocking, unexpected, they feel violating. Um, how do we take care of ourselves so we can get back to our balanced state of being? So it could be somebody yelling and screaming at you. It could be someone taking something from you. It could be a natural disaster, a home disaster. I mean, it could be run the gamut to something really, even something that happens in a community it's shocking, right? How do you recover from shock? I think is kind of what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, I think, first of all, before we can ever recover from anything, we have to be aware that it happened and allow ourselves to know it. The reason that I brought this topic to our consideration for today was because on Saturday I was seeing a client in a restaurant and someone stole my wallet. And yes, I foolishly had everything in my wallet. I had my social security card, I had all my medical information, I had my everything, everything, every credit card, every debit card, everything I own was in that wallet. And I was incredulous. Like, I had that wallet in the car, I put it in my purse, I went into the restaurant. So of course, the first thing that I did when hours later and I went to pay for my groceries and I realized I didn't have it, as I took it on myself. All right, go back to the where you've been, go back to the restaurant, retrace your steps, then go back and say, did I misremember this? Go back to my home, check absolutely everywhere, then finally realize I could go and check online. So I went and checked online on my bank accounts. Oh, lo and behold, before I ever left the restaurant, they had spent $6,000 at Best Buy and Target. You know,
Mhm.
okay, they're the reality. But it takes a while for the reality to actually hit. And fortunately, nature usually allows us to rise to the occasion and do what is required before the emotional sets in. So that's where the topic came from today, because you do what you have to do. If somebody gets hit by a car, you do all the things that you need to do, or you hear your loved one is ill, you rush to the hospital, you do everything you need to do. But then you have to recognize that you took a hit too.
Yes.
And then, oh, well, what's really going on within me? Can I now let down all this doing and recognize that, oh, something happened to me. And now how do I take care of myself?
And I'm out of sorts and I'm not feeling like myself. And the for me, a lot of times I would tend to go to blaming myself, feeling bad about myself, beating myself up about it. And I think, maybe we have to do a little bit of that. And if we can avoid it, I would highly suggest not.
Yeah, I think, that's what I was referring to. I did my due diligence. Was it my fault? Did I leave it somewhere? Did I drop it in a dressing room when I was trying on clothes before I went to buy my groceries? Did I drop it in the grocery store? Did I actually have it? Did I remember that, sitting in the car, going through the receipts in my wallet, closing my wallet, putting it in my purse? Okay, I think that's good. But then, okay, did I misremember? So come home, check everywhere. Went through the car 3 times. You can't
Of
even put
course.
something under my seat. And yet I'm looking for my wallet under my seats. So you do your own due diligence, like, am I sure? And then you begin to think, no, somebody violated me.
Yeah. And it's not a good feeling. And it's like you got a cut. It's like somebody physically hurt you almost. And what you need to do is now take care of that wound. It's a wound.
Mm-hmm.
It's being hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So, on the evening that it happened, I spent hours calling every financial institution and all, and I have identity theft coverage, so letting them know because they have my social security number so that they couldn't use it and shutting down the cards. And I'm sitting here looking on the screen, watching people put payments on as I'm shutting down that very account and, realizing how our world can work. Somebody can take your debit card and use it as a credit card, and there's no signature, so they can just sign them as credits.
And it's really a harsh reality to think that people in our society would do that to each other. Like,
And yeah, that, and that maybe there was more than one of them, because when you look at how many places they went and how many purchases they made in a time frame,
they
it's
divided and
almost like
conquered.
they divided the cards up, right? And then later on, they figured out that I have a reserve line for one of my accounts and that they could tap into that. Now, fortunately, they were denied because they thought of it too late.
Mhm.
But there was lots of access there.
Wow, that's crazy, incredible. And that stores don't check these days
They
for
don't at all.
matching.
And they went to three different Best Buys and three different Targets. Now, the first Target allowed them to buy over $1,000 worth of stuff, but the next two did not. They declined the cards. However, is Best Buy that smart? No, they went to three different Best Buys and spent over $2,000 at each one of them,
Yeah,
right?
wow, it's a big scam. And I am sorry that happened to you.
Thank
So
you.
how do we start the recovery process? I mean, yes, you got to do the logistical, but then like I know if it was me, I'd probably have a major meltdown at some point just to release all that feeling of, I go into my head about, oh, the world is a cold and lonely place and nobody loves anybody and especially me and what does this mean about me? And then you can go in this really dark place, but at the same time, it's an opportunity to nurture oneself and says, you know what, you're okay. You do have people who love you and it's all
Excuse me
good.
1 second. I've just keep talking. My doorbell rang.
Yes. So it's incredible feeling to know that it's you're worthy and to get back to that place and know that all is really okay. All is well right now in the world with you. It's not a problem. And that there are people who care. And this is about taking the wound and putting a little salve on it, right? That's what we have to do is take care of ourselves. I mean, I had a little trauma and Roberta, you may have, I mean, this is something really um, that happens all the time. And I'll tell you, Roberta, that there's uh, something that happened to me that it wasn't really happening to me. It happened in the community, and I heard about it. There's a website called Nextdoor, and they do it by neighborhood. And I saw on Nextdoor that somebody was shooting a gun, and they caught it on their camera, the doorbell camera just in the very corners of the camera, shot. And it's less than a mile from here. And I've been
Oh,
thinking about it all
yeah.
weekend, and there's a shock there. It's like, wow, when those kind of things happen in your community, and I can only imagine if there are people and people and people are hurt and there's a wound that happens and we have to get really good at treating these wounds. And I just want to give a shout out to Cheryl. Thanks for joining us. And I know a lot of other people have joined us. So thanks.
Well, the reason I wanted to go to the door was for the very reason that we're discussing this today, because some financial institutions are better than others. And already from a financial institution in Canada that I reported this to on Saturday night, I just got a courier new card.
Oh,
So there
wonderful.
are some decent things that happen in the world, right? But it's such a moment. Like, I was fine going through it, but I felt lonely. And for two reasons, I felt lonely. First of all, I live alone. Secondly, so there was no one to commiserate. There was no one to to go there, it's all right. And I just had to suck it up and get on the computer and do everything that needed to be done. And it took 2.5 hours. But it was Mother's Day. And there I was. I had no cash. I had no debit card. I had no credit card. I desperately wanted to even go to Starbucks just to be around people. I couldn't. So I was isolated. And then even on Mother's Day, I couldn't take myself out. I couldn't get up in the morning and celebrate in any way. It's like, oh, and because I didn't have any way to replenish the gas in my car, I felt I couldn't go anywhere. So there
You
was
felt stuck. You had a,
yeah, a whole limitation of, okay. And I had to keep reminding myself, you have food. You have food. You're okay.
whatever you have to say to yourself to console yourself. For me, it's all about who's, reminding myself, even if I'm alone in the moment, who's in my life that could support me or would support me, or I could go and cry to if I needed to.
Right.
Um,
And then, how much do I really need to do that? What is it that I need right now? Well, what I realized that I needed was I just needed to go to Starbucks, be around people, normalize the situation, be safe, right? Instead of being alone in my house, unable to go anywhere with no money. But I couldn't do that.
mm,
So then I just did a lot of self-care things and knew that I would have to wait until Monday because the banks had told me what I had to do on Monday
right.
and go and do those things. And it wasn't until yesterday afternoon, after 2 hours at the bank with a wonderful young man who walked me through absolutely everything, that I began to feel the effect of being violated.
Mm,
Now, I'm fine because, even on Saturday night, I was reminded of an old book that I read, in probably the early 80s by Stuart Wilde. And I have a deep spiritual practice as you do, and this is a spiritual book. And Stuart Wilde had said, back in the day when there were, we had components for our stereos, and they came on those glass things, and they had little round things at the bottom, that supported them. And he said in one of his books, he said, "Look, live in abundance." When you come home and you sit down and you look over and all that's left of your stereo are those little round marks in the carpet, he said, don't go anywhere bad. Just simply say to yourself, oh, they came for the stereo. And this ran through my mind, and I thought, okay, who needed that money so desperately? What did they need? What was really going on? Who lives like that? What kind of a person lives in an opportunistic faction, to tie into our previous comments a couple of weeks ago, that they're looking around to take and have no sense of balance in life? What happened to them that makes them think that that's okay? Now, I'm not I'm not in any way condoning or enabling their behavior, but caused me to think, all right, that train of thought was okay for me. Like, and I kept having this recurring thought, this is a fresh start. For some reason, I need a fresh start because, we have cards that do auto pays, and we have cards that are set up so that you could purchase something on Amazon without putting the card in again. And so all of that is gone. So it's a total fresh start. Why do I need a fresh start? Now, I don't want to paint myself as this wonderful person who had all these spiritual things going on, but those were some of the things that were going through my head. The other things were like, poor me, this is nasty. I'm alone. I'm at home. Who do I actually know that I could ring up and feel comfortable saying, can I borrow $100? And I thought, really? Nobody. I don't feel comfortable doing that. None of my friendships are at the basis of borrowing money. And I'm not sure I want them to be either. But, those are the thought processes. And so it wasn't until yesterday afternoon when I could actually engage in the level of self care, um, that was beyond what I had been doing, which is just calming myself and saying, Monday will come. There's nothing that you can do. Just make sure that you're well hydrated and relaxed, and continue to recognize that when thoughts pop up, you say, I'll handle it on Monday.
yeah. And taking care of oneself is about doing exactly what you just shared, which is, what can I do? what is going to make me feel better? Can you get out in a way that, doesn't cost you money or gas or something like that? Can you call somebody? Can you, what is it that made you feel better? And I think you did what you needed to do once you acknowledge, oh my gosh, I'm feeling violated. So like you said, that's the first thing to do, is like acknowledge the feeling. Like, so I was dealing with that this weekend myself. I'm like, man, this wasn't on the news. But this was on, I saw the
Yeah.
video and it was around the corner. And I'm like, how can there be these people who want to do this to each other? And how can I keep myself safe? And what do I need to do with myself? For me, I just wanted to, maybe it was a message to say, well, maybe I need to put in some extra security measures here. Maybe there's more I need to research on. I don't know what the message was about that. But I think if we stay in the question of what can we do to take care of ourselves, answers
Mhm.
come. And we do have a comment here from Cheryl. She said it's always good to keep $100 bills and in $100 in small bills in case there's a need for it, like, or there's storms. She lives in Florida with the hurricanes, and because credit cards won't work when power's out, so or some in car. You never know.
Oh, I absolutely agree with her. And you know where that $100 was tucked into my wallet.
I'll keep it in the house, I think.
Right. So I certainly take her point, because I thought that to myself. I thought, well, why don't I have any cash in the house?
Ah,
Right? Like, why? Because I think I've got this all handled. It's in my wallet. I always keep $100 in the back of my wallet that I never see, just in case I need it. Right.
mhm.
And of course, these wonderful people immediately got $170 in cash as soon as they opened my wallet, which is unretrievable or irretrievable. And yeah, I absolutely agree with Cheryl. Woke me up to, I could have money tucked here and there, that I wouldn't have that feeling again. That would be a good care of myself,
And
right?
that's just, for me, I'm thinking like Cheryl's like, what does disaster recovery mean in these days? We're told to have the earthquake kit, and
Yeah.
sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. And it's good to think about what is it that you'll need in case of some sort of event that happens that knocks you off kilter, and start putting those little things in place, whether it's a little cash around the house or a backup plan. Like, if something happens, who do you call? Not bad to think about it. That's a really good outcome of this conversation, and something
Mhm.
that didn't happen that was fun.
And I think we have to be wise, that we have to know what to do proactively that's just wise, and where the balance line is to being paranoid,
Right.
right?
We don't want to be
Like,
paranoid though.
no. So, I certainly agree with Cheryl's point, and I have certainly learned that I should never have had my Social Security card in my wallet, right?
Right.
The thing that I was very glad about was, of course, I didn't have my passport in my purse, because they were able to take that. Like, one of the cards where I went to talk about, and he said, well, give me this number. I said, I don't have that number. He said, well, give me your passport number. And I realized that I'd never remembered they asked for that as a backup. But that, because of that, I could immediately get the card replaced.
Excellent.
I mean, but I think, like, this is remarkable that this is here
That's awesome.
already.
Yeah.
Now, it happens to be a card that has no balance on, that I haven't used in 5 years, but I now have a new card if I get stuck, right? And
Right.
that's immediate,
It
right?
is immediate. And Cheryl's saying, this is cute. My aunt stashed her cash in the freezer in case she needed cold cash. That's
Wise
good.
woman,
Yeah.
wise woman.
Cold cash. We like that.
Yeah.
If you
But
need some cold cash, you know where to
one
go.
of one of the things that occurred to me was, it was the small things that I wanted, not the big things. Like, I wanted the freedom to go to Starbucks. I don't even drink Starbucks coffee. I just knew that it was close by, and it was a place where there would be people, and they would be people who were enjoying, a certain level of beverage that they enjoy that is not alcohol, and that I would feel safe at Starbucks, right?
Right.
And I think it's a good thing to know what it is that you need, um, and have some just conversation with yourself to know that, okay, that would work. I don't need to go and stay at somebody's house overnight. I don't need that. I
Mhm.
just needed to be able to go to Starbucks. Well, if I had $10 in the cupboard or the freezer, I would have been able to do that. And then
Exactly.
last night it occurred to me that I'm sitting here in my office. I have a 6-foot window right here. They know my address. They know the address of my business. They know absolutely everything. What kind of people are they? I don't even cover these windows. I had the moment going, it's pitch black out there. I wonder who's out there looking in the window, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, well, they can't. They'd have to get on a ladder. But I had the thought, oh no, that's extending, getting to that balance point of what's possible and what's paranoia. Because people who behave in these ways, they're not the people who are going to come and rob your home because that's too much work for them. They want the opportunism of grabbing your cards,
Yeah.
the easy, the easy grab,
So,
right?
yeah, exactly. And just to know, be wise about it versus being paranoia and going into the worry and the what if, because worry and what if doesn't solve anything. We need to heal now. So, what is the next step? Where are you going next with this?
Well, I just before I answer that question, I'll just say one of the things that settled me down last night as I looked out the window and I thought, anybody can get my address. They don't have to steal my wallet. I mean, there's so many ways online that they could find out where you live. It doesn't matter, right? So it's always been the case that somebody could find out where I lived if they wanted to. And that was the end of that conversation. So what is the self-care? Well, the self-care is to having the gumption to go and get everything in order right away, right? Do the self care, go to the DMV, go to Social Security, go to all these places and make sure that I clarify that. And also, um, clearing my schedule a little bit. As it happened, one of the people that I was supposed to work with this afternoon canceled. It was like cosmic.
Mm,
I really need to go and do all these things, and they canceled. Oh, great. Now I have 5 hours to do something. Also, I know my own body. So lots and lots and lots of water. I was thirsty immediately, notice those things. I rested. I had physical therapy appointment anyway, but I said I need to relax, work on everything to relax. And so not letting your thoughts run, not taking yourself down rabbit holes and dark alleys in your mind, right? Be, and then I had a house guest coming for Mother's Day, which was lovely because I did have the fact that somebody had already, my daughter's friend, she's living in Ojai, and she said, I'd like to come down and take you for dinner and stay overnight with you. So it was like that was preordained that she was coming, she was paying, and it was fine and lovely. But I also knew then I had someone to debrief with,
yes.
right?
Good.
And so I didn't have to phone 10 friends and say, ain't it awful? The world did me wrong. And,
Mhm.
all of that, because that conversation repeated is a way of wounding yourself. So I didn't want to go and say, oh, you'll never guess what happened to me, because it happens to people all the time.
Mhm. But there is a value, like you said, inventing it's a safe space at least once.
Yeah,
Sometimes you'll need to do it two or
absolutely.
three times, but be aware of it, that it's part of the healing process, not that you want to stay in that trauma.
Well,
So,
but what I found, Laura, was I told someone, I told Charles, and that was it. And then I went to tell somebody else who happened to call, and I realized, no, this feels like rewounding now,
mhm.
right? It was really good to tell Charles this happened, all of that. But then after that, it felt like TMI, right? I don't need to say it, and I don't want to process it again. And I think we do need to be tuned into ourselves in that way because, with my work, I often see people who are stuck in their story. They tell the story over and over and over. And I tell them, okay, if you're going to work with me, you're going to tell me your whole story. You're not going to tell another human being unless you're about to marry them ever again, right? Because you're rewounding yourself. I need to know the story, but it's between you and your therapist, not between you and every friend that you have who's going to give you information, good or bad. Don't do that, right? Like you said, when something happens, you tell two or three people. I did call the police. I had a long conversation. I put in a police report. That was the appropriate person to hear what happened. They asked all the questions in order, right? They took down every credit card number. They did everything. So just know what works for you. Like, get really clear about what works for you. Notice how you feel when you retell a story that has some damage in it. Don't do that to yourself if it doesn't feel like it's healing.
And I have an observation. So when you've told it the one or two times, if you prevent yourself from telling it over again, you actually get to be with the after effect and start the healing process. It's almost like if you're addicted to telling it over and
Right.
over again, you're addicted to being in it and not resolving it. So like you said to me earlier, it's like, I'm feeling fragile. Well, that's the sign you're healing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling that fragility, it means you've actually started, to me, it means you've started the process of coming out of it, because it's a necessary stage. I mean, hey, you were you were wounded, and
Yeah.
it's okay to feel what you feel, and other people might feel other things, anger, pain, hurt, betrayal, whatever it is. Feel it, but
Yeah.
ride it to the next place. Don't you re-injure it. Don't rework it.
Right. Well, when Charles and I wrote this book, Soul Solitude, Taking Time for Our Souls to Catch Up, one of the things that we write in there is one of the big predicaments in life is that we are addicted to drama. And
Mm.
you just brought that up. Like, are you addicted to the retelling and, oh, poor me, and I'm now the center of attention, and isn't this awful? As opposed to, I just need to vent it out one time and have somebody say, there, it'll be okay. And did you think of this or that? But really just hugging you to
Letting you know
say,
you're okay.
yeah. And that's great. But then what is the purpose of retelling? So what I found was once I had said it to a couple of authorities, it was dissipating. By the time was on the third credit card call, and they were saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's awful." I was already dissipating. I didn't need any more of that,
Right.
right?
I do find that sometimes, especially if it's trauma caused by an interaction with somebody else, that it's the crazy making thing, that you feel like you're crazy. Sometimes you need to say it so you can hear the validation a few more times, because for me, in my head anyway, it's the negative energy trying to reinforce itself versus, I'm telling you this so you can give me some positive energy, because I need that to
Right.
erase the negative. That
Yeah.
validation sometimes is what we need. And if you need it, know it, and see if
Hmm.
sometimes I'll just ask. I say, I'm going to say this, and what I really need you to say is how wonderful I am. I need you to tell me that I'm not crazy. I need you to tell me that I'm a good
Yeah.
person, that people care about, that you care about me. And it feels really awkward sometimes, even to that person, but and I'll be careful sometimes how I say it. Here's what I need versus like, you need to tell me. I would say,
Right.
I really need to hear this. And if that's possible for you to do, that would be helpful. That's like the best way you could potentially help me. And I'm only telling this to a safe person who I'm close with, who I know.
Look at all the caveats we have to add.
Right, we do. But like I say in the feminine power cards, one of the cards is the feminine needs to feel safe to love well. And taking care of our safety, in particular this situation with what you're talking about, it was all about feeling safe in the world. So what do you need to feel safe? And it's okay to ask for it, and go ensure it in some ways without being too paranoid, and risking, if you're willing to risk, how people are going to respond. But hopefully you have those people you feel safe with in the world to get that validation, if that's something you need and want, and know would counteract the energy that's going on, that's trying to take you down, so you can just come back up.
Absolutely. And being able to, first of all, know what you need. Like, that's the key to what you just said, is you can't express to somebody what you need if you don't know what it is yourself. So spend enough time. Or if you find yourself spinning and going down rabbit holes, go to someone you trust and say, I need help to clarify what I'm feeling, or going through right now, and make sure it's a person who's not going to jump in the rabbit hole with you. Somebody who can give you that okay, I'll hold your hand while you're spinning and slowly, we'll stop the spin.
Yeah. And they're holding the space for you versus trying to direct you.
Exactly.
Because here's the thing, we are all able to heal for the most part. We have this power to heal if we're given the space and the nurturing
Right.
to do it. If we're being squashed and controlled and told how to, that doesn't always help us bring out our healing ability, but we have this ability. And that's, I think, what our work is about, both yours and mine, with my hypnosis, with coaching, with the feminine power cards, with your work and brilliant work with the hijackals, and how do we recover from this. It's finding that innate fortitude and really reinforcing it, bringing it to the surface. And then what you and I do for each other, what we do as friends, is we help empower each other.
Mm-hmm. And you need friends like Laura and I are friends who can text and say, I really need 10 minutes. And we know that we'll make that for each other as soon as possible. You need friends like that. Everybody needs friends like that. They don't have to be the friends who will lend you $100, but you need friends who will lend you 100 minutes, right?
Yes,
and
yes,
and that's the important thing, right? And
yes.
even having this conversation of positivity, I can feel the shifts that are happening. To have this show up at the door, it was supposed to come tomorrow, and they said you have to stay home and you've got to sign for it, which is why I went to the door. And I didn't have to sign for it. The guy had dumped it on my doorstep and was gone. He waved. But wow, it came a day early. Like, okay, it's getting back together.
Yeah.
Everything is recombining, and it'll be stronger and better now because this is the sole components of my wallet plus one credit card after this event. They were able to give me two debit cards, one for my business, one for my personal, and I was able to get $100. And I'm going to have a very small wallet from now on instead of this big fat wallet. Right?
Right.
But everything is a learning experience. Again, I don't mean to, elevate the conversation to what can we learn from this only, but it is an invitation to say, okay, have you thought of that part of your life? Now, if I didn't have that $10 a month that I've been paying for 10 years to keep my identity theft, like somebody monitoring it all the time, I wouldn't have felt nearly as comfortable. But just knowing that I could come home and say, they have my social security card, and immediately everything is shut down. There are things that you can do for yourself like that.
Yes. And it makes
Yeah.
you feel stronger. Every little thing you do to take care of yourself and your financial wherewithal makes you feel that much better. And of course, having the emotional side also to know what you need and take care of yourself, I think is really important. And then even physically, because you're feeling, like you said, the water, the sleep, the rest, the,
Actually, the exercise. I just got this new thing from because they had them at physical therapy, and I wanted them myself. And I have this door frame exercise system where I could use like big muscles and just do it and do it until I felt strong again,
mm,
right?
yes.
And so physically, instead of going, oh, for
Yeah, get into
me,
your body
it
strength.
was
Yes.
important to get that happening. And so, we need to know ourselves as individuals what we need and
Yeah.
know ourselves well enough to know what that is.
Yes.
So
So this
important.
has been a very robust conversation. How can people be in touch with you for the work that you do to help them recover in relationships that are very stressful and challenging?
Sure, just come over to my website for FOR relationship help, HELP.com, for relationshiphelp.com. Go to my YouTube channel, it has the same name, for relationship help. And I do offer a first time new client consultation of a full hour for only $97. We get things done in that session. So if you just need a place to talk about or you have questions or whatever, you can do that one time. And the other thing that's really important and exciting is come over to my membership program, optimizecircles.com. Come over and join in at one of three levels. completely off social media, completely safe on my website where I can support you and you can ask your questions and get videos and webinars and ask me anything, group coaching calls. It's all there for you.
Awesome. And if you all want to get a set of the feminine power cards, because these are here for you when your friends can't be in the middle of the night, feminine power cards, they really do bring forth to your source of your own healing. That's what they're designed to do. Of course, I'm available at either transformtoday.com or laurarubinstein.com. You can be in touch and you can message us here on the Facebook page. Let us know and specifically how we can help, any specific questions you have. We love being here with you. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with another awesome topic. If you have ideas or questions, we'd love to hear them because that will help us bring you what you need.
And I just want to second the business of the feminine power cards. You know, I've said many times in this program that I keep them on the altar in my bedroom. And I will just randomly go and pick one up. And it's like, ah, okay. And so I highly recommend that you have some of those as a self-care gift to yourself. So
Thank
remember
you.
to go to femininepowercards.com and have those in your back pocket.
Yes, enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.